1873. The HMS Challenger cuts through Pacific waters on the first true oceanographic expedition in human history. Crew drops dredging equipment 2 miles down into absolute darkness. When the net returns to surface, among the mud and unknown creatures, there's something that doesn't belong. A tooth, triangular, serrated, longer than a grown man's hand. The ship's naturalist holds it up to sunlight, and in that moment realizes this came from a mouth that could swallow a great white shark whole. They would name the creature Megalodon, big tooth. For over a century, we believed this was the ocean's supreme giant, the largest predator ever to hunt Earth's waters, the animal that made whales prey. We built our understanding of marine enormity around this beast. Museums erected jaws you could walk through. Documentaries declared it the ultimate oceanic apex predator, the ruler of ancient seas. We were catastrophically wrong. Before we dive in, please consider subscribing and liking this video. Your support truly helps us continue this work. Thank you. Tonight, we're taking a journey through 4 billion years of ocean evolution and the answer to one deceptively simple question. What was the largest sea creature ever? You might think you know. You've probably seen the reconstructions, the size comparisons with buses and buildings. But as we'll discover, that question has 3 completely different answers depending on what largest actually means. And one of those answers was only confirmed 8 months ago, rewriting everything we thought we understood about the limits of life in water. By the end of this, you'll understand why the ocean keeps humbling us, why our textbooks keep changing, and why the creature you're imagining right now probably isn't even in the top 3. The story begins, as so many stories of lost giants do, with a tooth, but not the one from the Challenger expedition. 30 years earlier, in 1843, a Swiss naturalist named Louis Agassiz was examining fossil teeth that had been turning up in various European collections for decades. Triangular, serrated, some as large as a human hand. They looked almost exactly like great white shark teeth, only vastly larger. Agassiz, who had a gift for dramatic names, called the creature Carcharodon Megalodon, great-toothed, jagged tooth, Megalodon for short. The name stuck. The creature haunted imaginations. For 60 years, Megalodon existed only as teeth, hundreds of them, scattered in fossil beds from Maryland to Japan, Peru to South Africa. Teeth told scientists the creature was global. Teeth told them it was massive. But teeth don't reveal size with precision. Sharks, you see, have cartilaginous skeletons. Cartilage doesn't fossilize well. When a shark dies, soft tissues and cartilage decay rapidly, leaving only the hardest parts. Teeth, vertebrae occasionally, but almost never a complete skeleton. So for generations, Megalodon was a ghost defined by dental evidence alone. Then, in 1909, Bashford Dean, an ichthyologist at the American Museum of Natural History, decided to reconstruct the entire animal. He had dozens of fossilized teeth to work with, ranging from tiny 1-inch specimens to massive 7-inch monsters. He knew great white shark anatomy intimately. So Dean made an assumption that seemed perfectly reasonable. He scaled up. If a great white shark with 2-inch teeth measured 15 feet long, then a Megalodon with 7-inch teeth should measure proportionally larger. Dean built the first life-sized Megalodon jaw reconstruction. When it was unveiled, visitors could stand inside the mouth. A grown adult could stand upright and not touch the upper teeth. The jaw measured roughly 9 feet across and 11 feet tall. Based on this, Dean estimated the creature at 80 to 100 feet in length, a moving fortress of teeth. The reconstruction terrified and mesmerized the public in equal measure. Newspapers ran stories. The monster from the deep had dimensions. It had become real in imagination. But Dean's calculations had a fatal flaw, one that wouldn't be discovered for nearly a century. He assumed Megalodon was simply a scaled-up great white. Same proportions, same body plan, just bigger. This assumption seemed logical because the teeth looked so similar. Convergent evolution often produces similar solutions to similar problems. But as we'll see, nature doesn't always scale linearly. And when it doesn't, our estimates become fantasy. Still, for most of the 20th century, Dean's numbers held. Megalodon was believed to be somewhere between 60 and 100 feet long, depending on which teeth you used for estimation. The creature lived from approximately 23 million years ago to about 3.6 million years ago. That's an incredibly successful run. Humans in our current form have existed for only 300,000 years. Megalodon ruled oceans for 19.5 million years, surviving multiple climate changes, continent shifts, and the evolution and extinction of countless prey species. It witnessed the rise of whales, hunted them, and vanished only when ocean temperatures and food supplies shifted beyond tolerance. Teeth kept appearing, thousands of them. In 1875, paleontologists working the Calvert Cliffs of Maryland found a whale rib with a semicircular bite mark. When they fitted a Megalodon tooth to the mark, it matched perfectly. The bite had been so powerful it drove through bone, leaving the tooth impression as a fossil. This wasn't scavenging, this was active predation. Whales, some of them 30 tons, were prey. By the early 2000s, technology had advanced enough to move beyond teeth measurements and into physics. Scientists could now model bite force using computer simulations based on jaw structure, tooth shape, and muscle attachment points. In 2008, Stephen Rowe at the University of New South Wales led a team that created a digital Megalodon jaw, complete with musculature and force distribution analysis. They fed the model data from modern great white sharks, crocodiles, and even Tyrannosaurus rex for comparison. Then they ran the simulation. The results were staggering. Megalodon's bite force was estimated at a minimum of 40,000 pounds per square inch. To put that in perspective, a Tyrannosaurus rex, previously considered the most powerful biter ever, could generate around 12,000 pounds per square inch. A saltwater crocodile, which has the strongest bite of any living animal, manages about 3,700. Megalodon's jaw could crush a small car. It could bite through bone like we bite through a cracker. The teeth weren't just for show or tearing. They were industrial shears backed by hydraulic press force. Rowe's study also confirmed something else. The tooth serrations weren't random. They were optimized for slicing through blubber and flesh efficiently. Each serration reduced friction, allowing the tooth to pass through tissue with minimal resistance. Megalodon didn't need to chew. It took bites that removed chunks of prey larger than most modern sharks. A single feeding bite could remove 500 pounds of flesh. Whales didn't stand a chance. They were swimming buffets. This painted a picture of oceanic dominance. Megalodon was the ultimate predator, apex of apex predators. Nothing could challenge it. In the ancient oceans between 23 and 3.6 million years ago, Megalodon was essentially unkillable by any other creature. It ate what it wanted. It went where it wanted. It had no rivals. At least that's what we believed. Then, in 2022, a study dropped that changed the entire conversation. Philip Stearns, a biologist at the University of California, Riverside, published research that recalculated Megalodon's proportions using a completely different method. Instead of scaling up from great white sharks, Stearns analyzed the few fossilized vertebrae that had been found, comparing them to vertebrae from multiple shark species with different body shapes. He discovered something startling. Megalodon wasn't shaped like a great white. It was stubbier, more thick-set. Its body was built for raw power and bursts of speed, not the lean efficiency of a great white. When Stearns recalculated size using these corrected proportions, the length estimates dropped. Megalodon was likely 50 to 60 feet, not 80 to 100. Still massive, still terrifying, but smaller than a century of estimates suggested. More importantly, Stearns calculated weight, and here's where everything changes. With the corrected proportions, Megalodon weighed approximately 100,000 pounds, 50 tons, an enormous predator by any measure, the largest predatory fish ever, almost certainly. But 50 tons is not the largest animal in the ocean, not even close. Because swimming in our oceans right now, today, are creatures that weigh 400,000 pounds, 200 tons, blue whales. And they've been this size for millions of years, longer than fish, longer than anything. Suddenly, length didn't seem like the right measurement anymore. Mass, weight, sheer physical substance began to matter more. Megalodon was huge, but it wasn't the biggest, not by a long shot. Blue whales entered the scientific record in 1868 when Swedish zoologist Daniel Fredrik Eschricht formally described the species based on specimens from Scottish waters. But humans had known about them longer. Whalers called them sulfur bottoms because of the yellowish diatom colonies that grew on their undersides. They were rare targets for early whalers because they were too fast and too large to hunt with hand harpoons from small boats. But when explosive harpoons and steam-powered ships arrived in the late 1800s, blue whales became economically valuable. Their size meant enormous quantities of oil. Hunting intensified. The largest blue whale ever reliably measured was caught by whalers in 1926 in the Antarctic. It measured 110 feet from nose to tail fluke. The heaviest ever weighed was taken in 1947 off South Georgia Island, 190 tons, 420,000 pounds. To put that in context, that's equivalent to roughly 33 elephants, or 24 large SUVs, or 1,800 adult humans. It's a mass so large that the animal's heart alone weighs as much as a small car. The tongue weighs as much as an elephant. The aorta is wide enough that a human child could crawl through it. Blue whales don't hunt. They filter feed. They take enormous gulps of water filled with krill, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans, and force the water back out through baleen plates. The krill get trapped. A blue whale eats roughly 4 tons of krill per day during feeding season. That's 8,000 pounds every single day for months. They do this in polar waters during summer when krill populations explode, then migrate to warmer waters in winter to breed, living off stored fat. This lifestyle, This body plan, optimized for bulk and efficiency rather than speed and killing, allowed them to reach sizes impossible for predators. And here we hit the paradox. Megalodon was a supremely optimized hunter, fast for its size, agile enough to ambush whales, powerful jaws. Megalodon was an athlete. Blue whales are marathoners, slow, steady, efficient, built to carry mass through long migrations. One is a sprinter, one is a freighter, and the freighter weighs 4 times what the sprinter does. This is the weight versus length question. For a century, we measured ocean giants by length because it's easy to visualize. Length gives us a number we can compare to familiar objects: buses, buildings, football fields. But length is a terrible measure of size when comparing animals with radically different body shapes. A 20-foot anaconda weighs far less than a 20-foot great white shark. A 60-foot megalodon weighed less than a 70-foot blue whale, despite being shorter, because the whale is vastly more massive in girth. So if we're asking what the largest sea creature ever was, and we define largest as heaviest, most massive, most physical substance, then blue whales are strong candidates. They've ruled the ocean for roughly 50 million years in various forms, growing to current maximum size within the last 5 million years as ocean productivity increased. They are the largest animals currently alive, the largest animals of the last several million years, certainly, possibly the largest animals ever. Except we discovered something 8 months ago that obliterated even that assumption. August 2023. Mario Urbina, a Peruvian paleontologist, is working in the Ica Desert of southern Peru. This region was underwater 39 million years ago, part of a shallow coastal sea. The desert is famous for fossil whales. Urbina has been digging here for years. But on this expedition, his team uncovers something unprecedented: vertebrae, massive vertebrae. Each one weighs over 200 pounds. They find 13 of them, along with 4 ribs and part of a hip bone. The bones are incredibly dense, far denser than modern whale bones, which are relatively light and spongy to aid buoyancy. These bones are like stone, heavy, compact. The team carefully excavates and transports them to museums for analysis. Giovanni Bianucci, a paleontologist at the University of Pisa in Italy, leads the research team analyzing the find. When they calculate the size and weight of the creature based on bone density and proportions, the numbers are staggering. This animal, which they name Perucetus colossus, meaning colossal Peruvian whale, weighed approximately 340 tons. That's nearly double a blue whale, the largest animal that has ever existed based on confirmed physical evidence. Not speculation, not extrapolation from a single tooth, actual bones, weighed, measured, analyzed. Perucetus looked nothing like a modern whale. Its bones suggest a body plan closer to a manatee or dugong, thick, barrel-shaped, with relatively short flippers. It didn't swim fast. It didn't need to. Perucetus likely lived in shallow coastal waters, using its immense weight as ballast. The dense bones acted like a diver's weight belt, allowing the creature to stay on or near the bottom without effort. It probably fed on shellfish, mollusks, and bottom-dwelling creatures, crushing them with sheer mass. Imagine a living submarine grazing across the sea floor, slow, unstoppable, unimaginably heavy. This creature lived 39 million years ago, during the Eocene epoch, when ocean temperatures were warmer and sea levels higher than today. Whales had only recently evolved from land mammals. They were still experimenting with body forms. Perucetus represents an evolutionary experiment in maximum mass. And it worked. For millions of years, these creatures thrived. Then they vanished, likely due to cooling oceans and changing food availability. But for a time, they were the heaviest animals Earth had ever produced. Heavier than any dinosaur, heavier than blue whales, heavier than anything before or since, at least anything we found. Yet. So now we have two candidates: Megalodon for largest predator, Perucetus for heaviest animal. But there's a third category, longest. And here the story gets murky, frustrating, and deeply fascinating. Because when we look for the longest sea creature ever, we run headfirst into the problem of incomplete fossils. Most of paleontology is educated guessing. You find a femur and estimate total height. You find a skull and estimate body length. It works reasonably well for land animals because we have modern analogues. We know roughly how a mammal or reptile scales. But ancient marine reptiles and fish followed different rules. And when you only have fragments, estimates become wild speculation. 1889. Alfred Leeds, a farmer and amateur fossil collector, discovers enormous fish bones in clay pits near Peterborough, England. The bones are unlike anything seen before. Huge. From a fish, clearly, but far larger than any known species. Over the next few decades, more fragments turn up in the same geological formation, the Oxford clay, which dates to the Middle Jurassic period, roughly 165 million years ago. Paleontologists name the creature Leedsichthys problematicus, Leeds fish. Problematic because nobody can agree how big it actually was. Early estimates, based on comparisons to smaller related species, suggested Leedsichthys reached 90 feet in length. Some researchers pushed estimates to 100 feet or more. If true, this would make it the longest fish that ever lived, longer even than modern whale sharks, which max out around 60 feet. Leedsichthys wasn't a predator. It was a filter feeder, similar in lifestyle to modern basking sharks or baleen whales. It swam through Jurassic seas with its mouth open, filtering plankton. Its bones suggest a slow, gentle giant, utterly harmless despite its size. But was it really 90 feet? Or was that estimate, like early Megalodon estimates, wildly exaggerated? In 2013, Jeff Liston at the National Museum Scotland led a comprehensive revision of Leedsichthys' size based on all known fossils. He compared growth rates, bone proportions, and skeletal mechanics. His conclusion brought the estimates down significantly. Liston calculated that Leedsichthys likely averaged around 45 feet, with largest individuals possibly reaching 60 to 70 feet. Still enormous, still the largest bony fish ever, but nowhere near 100 feet. The earlier estimates were based on fragmentary material and overly optimistic extrapolation. Liston's work was more conservative, more grounded in actual evidence. But even he admitted, we don't have a complete skeleton. We're guessing based on pieces, and that's the problem with extinct giants. We rarely get complete fossils, especially from marine environments. When an animal dies in the ocean, it sinks. Scavengers attack the carcass. Ocean currents scatter bones. Geological processes crush and distort remains. What we find is usually partial, damaged, and open to interpretation. So when someone claims an ancient sea creature was a certain size, it's worth asking, how much of the skeleton do we actually have? Often the answer is disturbingly little. Which brings us to the ichthyosaurs, marine reptiles that lived during the Mesozoic era, roughly 250 to 90 million years ago. They looked like dolphins, but were reptiles, not mammals. Some were small, some were enormous, and some, based on fragmentary fossils, might have been the longest animals ever to swim. 1905. John C. Merriam, a paleontologist from the University of California, discovers an enormous skull in the Triassic rocks of Nevada's Shoshone Mountains. The skull alone measures over 6 feet long. Based on proportions of smaller related species, Merriam estimates the creature reached 60 feet or more. He names it Shastasaurus. Over the following decades, more Shastasaurus fossils turn up in Nevada, British Columbia, and China. The largest species, Shastasaurus sicaniensis, is estimated at 69 feet based on partial skeletons. If accurate, this would make it one of the longest marine reptiles ever. But in 2004, Elizabeth Nichols, a Canadian paleontologist, described a related ichthyosaur species that might have been even larger. Based on incomplete remains from British Columbia, she suggested lengths of 75 to 80 feet. The fossils were fragmentary, a few vertebrae, partial ribs, skull fragments. But the size of individual bones suggested something truly massive. Excitement built. News articles proclaimed discovery of the largest marine reptile ever. Documentaries featured Shastasaurus as the Triassic Ocean's supreme giant. But the problem remained. Nobody had a complete skeleton. Estimates were based on comparisons to smaller, better-known species, and those comparisons might be wrong. Then, in 2021, a Norwegian team working in Svalbard, an Arctic archipelago, discovered new ichthyosaur vertebrae in 210-million-year-old rocks. The vertebrae were enormous, larger than any previously found. When the team published their analysis, they cautiously suggested these bones came from animals exceeding 85 feet in length, possibly 90, perhaps more. But again, the remains were incomplete, just vertebrae, no skull, no complete spine. The size estimates were extrapolations. And here's where paleontology becomes frustrating. We're arguing over measurements based on fragments. Imagine trying to determine someone's height from a single ankle bone. You can make an educated guess. You can compare to average proportions, but you can't be certain. You could be off by 10%, 20%, 40%. And when you're dealing with creatures 60 to 90 feet long, a 40% error is 30 feet. That's the difference between a creature and a legend. This problem has plagued marine paleontology for over a century. In the 1990s, the BBC documentary Walking with Dinosaurs featured Leopleurodon, a marine reptile, as a 100-foot super predator terrorizing Jurassic seas. The documentary presented this as fact. Museums included it in exhibits. For years, Leopleurodon was pop culture's ultimate sea monster. Then, in 2002, paleontologists published revised estimates based on better fossil evidence. Leopleurodon was actually around 20 to 23 feet long, not 100. The documentary estimates were based on a single enormous tooth, and someone had assumed the entire animal scaled proportionally. It didn't. The tooth came from an individual with an unusually large head relative to body size. The correction was embarrassing. It also revealed how easily we can be seduced by fragmentary evidence and the desire to find record breakers. So when we ask what the longest sea creature ever was, the honest answer is we don't know. We have candidates, Leadsichthys at 60 to 70 feet, Shastosaurus at 69 feet, unnamed Norwegian ichthyosaur possibly 85 feet or more, blue whales today at 110 feet. But all the extinct species are based on incomplete remains. We're extrapolating, guessing, hoping, and every few years someone finds a slightly bigger bone and revises the numbers up or down. It's less science than informed speculation, which is frustrating if you want definitive answers. But it's also exhilarating because it means the oceans of deep time still hold secrets. We're still discovering, still revising, still being surprised. And if incomplete fossils frustrate us when studying the ancient past, consider this. 95% of the ocean remains unexplored. Not ancient ocean. The ocean right now. Today, the ocean we're currently living beside. We've mapped the surface. We've dropped sensors. But in terms of direct observation, actual eyes-on exploration, we've seen roughly 5%. The rest is unknown. And in that unknown, things live. Things we've never documented. Things that might rival or exceed anything from the fossil record. The ocean's average depth is 12,000 feet, over 2 miles. Most of it exists in permanent darkness. Temperatures hover just above freezing. Pressure reaches levels that would crush a car. For most of human history, this environment was utterly inaccessible. We could sail across the surface, but we couldn't go down. The deep ocean might as well have been another planet. Then, in the 1960s, we developed the technology to change that. Submersibles, remotely operated vehicles, deep-sea cameras. Suddenly, we could see. And what we saw astonished us. Life everywhere. Not empty, not barren. Teeming with bizarre creatures adapted to conditions we can barely imagine. Giant isopods, spider crabs with legs spanning 12 feet, jellyfish the size of cars, 6-gill sharks cruising at depths where sunlight never reaches, and squid, enormous squid. In 2012, Japanese researchers using submersibles filmed a giant squid in its natural habitat for the first time, 3,000 feet down. The animal measured 43 feet from tentacle tip to tail. It moved with eerie grace, arms undulating, eyes the size of dinner plates reflecting the camera lights. For centuries, giant squid were legends, sailors' tales, kraken myths. Now we have video. They're real, they're huge, and they live in a realm we've barely begun to explore. But giant squid aren't the largest cephalopods. That title belongs to colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, which lives even deeper in Antarctic waters. We've only ever found a handful of specimens, most of them dead, washed ashore, or caught in fishing nets. The largest measured specimen was 33 feet long, but it was a juvenile. Adults might reach 45 to 50 feet. We don't know because we've never seen an adult alive. They live too deep. They're too rare. The ocean keeps them hidden. And it's not just animals. In 2021, Australian scientists using multi-beam sonar discovered a coral reef off the coast of Queensland. The reef stands over 1,600 feet tall, taller than the Empire State Building. Nobody knew it existed until the mapping expedition. It's been there for thousands of years, teeming with life, and we simply never looked. How many other reefs, seamounts, trenches, and ecosystems are out there, undocumented? How many species live and die without ever being seen by human eyes? In 2023, Chilean scientists conducted a deep-sea expedition off the country's coast. One voyage, 30 days. They discovered over 100 new species: fish, crustaceans, mollusks, sponges, creatures that had never been catalogued. Some were bizarre, some were beautiful, all were unknown. And Chile's coast is relatively well studied compared to vast stretches of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, which have barely been surveyed at all. This raises an uncomfortable but thrilling question. Could something the size of a blue whale live in the deep ocean right now, and we simply haven't found it? Could there be a creature larger than Pericetus cruising abyssal plains, feeding in ways we don't understand, avoiding our cameras and sensors? It sounds like science fiction. But consider this. Blue whales themselves feed at depth. They dive to around 1,500 feet regularly, sometimes deeper. That's below the photic zone, the region where sunlight penetrates. They're feeding in darkness on krill swarms we can't see from the surface. If blue whales can go that deep, could something else live exclusively at those depths or deeper, never needing to surface because it doesn't breathe air? Marine mammals are constrained by the need to breathe. They must surface regularly. This limits how deep they can live permanently. But fish don't have this limitation. Neither do invertebrates. They extract oxygen from water. They can live at any depth as long as oxygen is present. And oxygen exists even in the deepest trenches, delivered by cold currents. So theoretically, a fish or squid or something entirely unknown could evolve to enormous size in the deep ocean and remain completely invisible to us. There's a phenomenon called deep-sea gigantism. It's well documented. Species that are small in shallow water grow enormous at depth. Isopods that are half an inch long in coastal zones reach 16 inches in the abyss. Amphipods that are normally thumbnail-sized grow to 12 inches in the deepest trenches. The reasons aren't fully understood, but theories include colder temperatures, slowing metabolism, and extending lifespan, allowing more growth time. Low predation pressure, meaning less need for defensive smallness. Scarce food favoring larger individuals who can go longer without eating and travel farther to find meals. Whatever the cause, the pattern is clear. The deep ocean makes things big. Now, most examples of deep-sea gigantism involve invertebrates, crustaceans, squid. But what about fish? The largest known deep-sea fish are sleeper sharks, particularly the Greenland shark, which can reach 24 feet and lives at depths exceeding 7,000 feet. Greenland sharks grow incredibly slowly, perhaps half an inch per year, and live for over 400 years. They're the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. 4 centuries of slow growth produces a large animal. Could an even deeper species, with even slower metabolism, grow larger still? Could there be a 50-foot fish in the midnight zone we've never encountered? We have hints. Fishermen occasionally haul up enormous, unidentified creatures from deep waters. Photos circulate online. Most turn out to be known species seen from unusual angles or decomposed beyond recognition. But occasionally, something genuinely strange appears. In 1976, a U.S. Navy ship off Hawaii recovered a megamouth shark tangled in a sea anchor, 14 feet long, a completely unknown species. Megamouth sharks are filter feeders, like whale sharks, but they live deep and only come to shallower water at night to feed on plankton. Since that first discovery, fewer than 300 sightings have been recorded. They're real, they're large, and we had no idea they existed until 50 years ago. What else is down there? Then there's the bloop. In the summer of 1997, NOAA's autonomous hydrophone arrays designed to monitor underwater volcanic and seismic activity, detected an extremely loud, ultra-low frequency sound in the South Pacific. The sound lasted about 1 minute. It was detected by sensors over 3,000 miles apart, meaning it was extraordinarily powerful. Louder than any whale vocalization ever recorded. Louder than any known geological process. The frequency and characteristics suggested a biological source, but no animal that large is known to exist. No AA designated it bloop and filed it as unexplained. For years, the bloop fueled speculation. Could it be a giant squid? An unknown whale species? Something else entirely? In 2012, NOAA updated their analysis. Using improved data, they concluded the sound most likely came from an ice quake, a large iceberg fracturing and cracking as it breaks away from Antarctic ice shelves. The acoustic signature matched better with ice than with biology. The mystery was solved, officially. Except not everyone agrees. Some marine bioacoustics researchers argue the frequency profile still resembles biological sounds more than ice. The debate continues quietly in academic circles, and the source location is intriguing. The sound originated near Point Nemo, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. It's the point in the ocean farthest from any land, over 1,600 miles from the nearest coastline, the most remote spot on Earth. If something wanted to remain hidden, that's where it would live. Is there a giant unknown creature at Point Nemo? Almost certainly not. The bloop was likely ice. But the fact that we can't definitively rule out a biological source tells you how little we know about the deep ocean. We're still arguing over sounds from 30 years ago. We're still surprised by new species every expedition. The ocean is not a solved mystery. It's barely begun. Which brings us to technology and the near future. For the first time in human history, we have tools capable of mapping and exploring the entire ocean floor in detail. Autonomous underwater vehicles, advanced sonar, AI-driven image recognition. The Schmidt Ocean Institute, a non-profit founded by former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, is leading efforts to map unknown seamounts and deep-sea regions. In March 2025, they're launching a major expedition targeting uncharted Pacific seamounts. These underwater mountains rise thousands of feet from the abyssal plain, but remain completely unstudied. Each seamount is essentially a biological island with unique ecosystems. The expedition will use ROVs, equipped with 4K cameras to survey depths down to 20,000 feet. What they'll find is unknown. But history suggests every new region explored yields new species, and occasionally something that rewrites our understanding. Meanwhile, genetic technology is advancing. Environmental DNA, or eDNA, allows scientists to detect species from water samples without ever seeing the animals. Creatures shed cells as they move through water. Skin cells, mucus, feces. Those cells contain DNA. By filtering seawater and sequencing the DNA present, researchers can identify every species that recently passed through that area. It's revolutionary. In 2022, researchers used eDNA to confirm the presence of rare shark species in regions where they were thought extinct. In 2023, eDNA surveys in the deep Pacific detected genetic signatures that didn't match any known species. Something is out there. We just haven't seen it yet. This technology will accelerate discovery dramatically. Instead of spending months searching for a single species, scientists can sample water, sequence DNA, and know what's present within days. It won't tell us size or behavior, but it will tell us what exists. And if eDNA picks up something large and unknown, it will guide submersibles to the right location. We're entering an era where the ocean's secrets will be harder to keep. But even with all this technology, size limits exist. Physics constrains life. On land, the largest animals ever were sauropod dinosaurs like Argentinosaurus, possibly reaching 100 tons. They were limited by gravity. Bones can only support so much weight before collapsing. Muscles require enormous energy to move massive bodies. Sauropods were near the physical maximum for land animals. In water, those constraints ease. Buoyancy supports weight. Blue whales at 200 tons can exist because water holds them up. They'd collapse under their own weight on land. But even in water, limits exist. The square cube law governs size. As an animal grows, its volume and mass increase faster than its surface area. A creature twice as long has 8 times the volume, but only 4 times the surface area. This creates problems. Larger animals have less surface area relative to mass, making it harder to absorb oxygen and release heat. They need more food to sustain massive bodies, but they have proportionally less gut surface to digest that food. At some point, the math stops working. An animal can't get enough oxygen or food to sustain further growth. For actively swimming predators, that limit seems to be around 50 to 60 tons. Megalodon. Great white sharks max out around 2 tons. Megalodon was roughly 25 times heavier, and that's probably near the limit for a fast-moving predator. They need muscle. Muscle requires oxygen and energy. There's a ceiling. Filter feeders like blue whales sidestep some of those constraints by moving slowly and eating low on the food chain. Krill are abundant. Whales don't chase prey. They swim through clouds of food with mouths open. It's energy efficient. This allows greater size. But even they hit limits. A whale twice the size of a blue whale would need twice the food. Can the ocean provide it? Krill populations are vast, but not infinite. There might not be enough food to support a 400-ton whale, let alone an 800-ton one. Perucetus, at 340 tons, probably lived in shallow, highly productive coastal waters where food was concentrated. In the open ocean, such a creature might starve. So theoretically, the ocean could support something larger than a blue whale, but only under specific conditions. Abundant food, efficient feeding, possibly a different metabolism. Cold-blooded animals like fish have lower energy requirements than warm-blooded mammals. A cold-blooded filter feeder in a food-rich environment might exceed blue whale size. But we haven't found one. Maybe they never evolved. Maybe they did and went extinct. Maybe they exist now in unexplored regions. We don't know. What we do know is this. The ocean has a 4 billion year history of producing giants. From the Ordovician sea scorpions 8 feet long to the Devonian armored fish 30 feet long and crushing bone with jaws. From the Triassic ichthyosaurs 70 feet long to the Jurassic plesiosaurs and pliosaurs ruling Mesozoic seas. From the Eocene Perucetus at 340 tons to the modern blue whale at 200 tons. Every era has produced something enormous. And every time we think we've seen the maximum, we find something that pushes the boundary further. Megalodon was the largest predatory shark, almost certainly. Possibly the largest predatory fish ever, but not the largest predator. Pliosaurs and mosasaurs might have matched or exceeded it. Perucetus was likely the heaviest animal ever. Blue whales are the heaviest living animal and possibly the longest confirmed animal by reliable measurement. Leedsichthys and Chastosaurus might have been longer, but the evidence is fragmentary. And something unknown might be alive right now in the deep ocean, unseen, waiting for technology to finally reveal it. This is why the question, what was the largest sea creature ever, has no single answer. It depends on your definition of largest. Longest, heaviest, most powerful, most massive predator. Each category has different winners, and each winner is based on incomplete data, ongoing research, and the humbling reality that the ocean doesn't care about our records. It builds life on whatever scale works. Sometimes that's a 3-inch copepod. Sometimes it's a 100-foot whale. The ocean is indifferent to our need for superlatives. What strikes me most is how recently we've learned any of this. Megalodon was only named in 1843. Blue whales were scientifically described in 1868. Perucetus was discovered 8 months ago. 8 months. The largest animal that ever existed was confirmed less than a year ago. We're still in the early stages of understanding ocean life. We're still finding bones that rewrite textbooks. We're still detecting sounds we can't explain. We're still mapping regions no human has ever seen. And we're still arguing over fragments. A tooth here, a vertebra there. We build elaborate theories on limited evidence because that's all we have. But the evidence keeps changing. Every decade brings new discoveries, new technology, new interpretations. The Megalodon we imagined in 1909 is not the Megalodon we understand today. The ocean giants we think we know now will look different in 2050 when we've explored more, found more, understood more. This is the beauty and frustration of science. It's never finished. We don't get final answers. We get better approximations, more accurate models, deeper understanding. But always with the knowledge that the next dig, the next expedition, the next analysis might change everything. We thought Megalodon was the biggest. Then we found blue whales were heavier. Then we found Perucetus was heavier still. What's next? What's waiting in the rocks or in the unexplored abyss? Here's what I think. I think the ocean still has giants we haven't found. I think fragmentary fossils hint at creatures larger than anything we've fully documented. I think the deep ocean probably hosts species we won't discover for decades. And I think the question of what was largest will never be fully answered, because largest is a moving target. New discoveries, new definitions, new understanding. But that's not a failure. That's the point. The ocean keeps us humble. It reminds us how little we know. It shows us that Earth still holds mysteries, even in the most studied, most familiar environments. We live on a water planet. 70% of the surface is ocean. We've explored 5%. 95% remains unknown. In that unknown are answers to questions we haven't thought to ask yet. And creatures that will make us reconsider everything we thought we understood about size, biology, and the limits of life. Megalodon's tooth started this journey. A single fossil pulled from the Pacific floor in 1873. It represented the largest predator we knew at the time. But it wasn't the largest creature. It wasn't even close. And that's okay, because the story of ocean giants isn't about finding the single biggest thing. It's about understanding that the ocean has always been a place of extremes, where life experiments with size in ways impossible anywhere else. where physics and biology intersect to create animals that dwarf anything on land, where 4 billion years of evolution has produced an endless parade of giants, each adapted to its time, its environment, its niche. We stand on the shore and look out at the water, and we think we understand it. We see the surface, we measure the tides, we track the currents. But beneath that surface is a world we've barely glimpsed. A world where things grow larger than our intuition suggests is possible. Where ancient creatures the size of buses hunted in darkness. Where modern whales sing songs that travel across entire ocean basins. Where something unknown might be moving right now through the deep, unaware that we're up here wondering about it. The largest sea creature ever? We're still looking. And that might be the most honest, most exciting answer of all. Because it means the search continues. The ocean still has secrets. And we still have the capacity to be astonished. In an age where we think we've mapped and measured and catalogued everything, the ocean reminds us we haven't. Not even close. And every time we descend into the deep or dig into the fossil record, we find something that makes us reconsider our place in the story. We're not the narrators. We're the audience, watching as the ocean reveals itself piece by piece, giant by giant, surprise by surprise. That tooth from 1873, that single fragment that sparked a century of speculation about Megalodon. It's in a museum now, behind glass, labeled and studied. Children press their faces to the display and marvel at the size. Adults read the plaque and imagine the creature it came from. But that tooth is just one piece of a much larger story. A story about how life finds ways to grow beyond our expectations. About how the ocean holds its secrets close and reveals them slowly. About how we're still learning, still discovering, still being humbled by the sheer scale of life on this planet. The largest sea creature ever. Maybe it was Perucetus at 340 tons. Maybe it was an unnamed ichthyosaur longer than we've yet confirmed. Maybe it's something still alive, cruising the abyss, waiting for the right camera to find it. Maybe it's something extinct, known only from a single bone we haven't correctly interpreted yet. Or maybe, just maybe, the answer is that the ocean doesn't deal in superlatives. It deals in diversity, adaptation, and endless variation. And the largest creature is simply whichever one we happen to be talking about today. Until tomorrow, when we find something bigger. That's the ocean's gift. It never stops teaching us how little we know and how much there is left to discover. Продолжение сценария. Acit 5 plus finale. So we've traced the history of ocean giants across hundreds of millions of years. From Triassic ichthyosaurs to Jurassic filter feeders. From Eocene whales heavier than anything before or since to the apex predator Megalodon. From modern blue whales to the unexplored depths where unknown creatures might still hide. But there's one question we haven't addressed. The most important question: why did so many of these giants disappear? And more urgently, could we be witnessing the end of the last ones right now? 3.6 million years ago, Megalodon vanished. After 19.5 million years of dominance, after surviving countless climate shifts and environmental changes, the largest predatory shark that ever lived went extinct. We know when. We're less certain why. The fossil record shows Megalodon teeth becoming progressively rarer in sediments after about 5 million years ago, then disappearing entirely around 3.6 million years ago. No gradual decline, a relatively sudden absence. something changed, something fundamental. The leading theory involves a cascade of environmental shifts. Around 5 million years ago, the Isthmus of Panama began rising from the sea floor, eventually connecting North and South America. This sounds like a minor geographic detail. It wasn't. The rising land bridge closed the seaway that had connected the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans for millions of years. Ocean currents that had flowed freely between the oceans were now blocked. Global circulation patterns changed. The Gulf Stream intensified. The Humboldt Current shifted. Nutrient distribution across the oceans transformed. With altered currents came altered marine ecosystems. Whale populations, Megalodon's primary prey, changed their migration patterns. Species that had been abundant in certain regions moved or declined. New predators emerged. Orcas, smaller but highly intelligent pack hunters, evolved around this time. They could coordinate attacks in ways Megalodon couldn't. They could target whale calves more efficiently. They could drive prey into shallow waters where a 60-foot shark couldn't follow. But the real killer was probably temperature. Ocean temperatures began dropping as the Pliocene epoch progressed. Ice ages intensified. Polar regions expanded. Megalodon was adapted to warm and temperate waters. As oceans cooled, the shark's preferred habitat shrank. Whales, being warm-blooded mammals, could tolerate colder waters. They migrated toward polar regions where krill populations exploded in cold, nutrient-rich waters. Megalodon couldn't follow. Cold water slowed its metabolism, made it sluggish, less efficient. Prey moved out of reach. Food became scarce, and a creature that needed to eat tons of meat every week couldn't afford scarcity. Within a few 100,000 years, Megalodon was gone, not gradually replaced, not outcompeted slowly, environmentally cornered and starved out. The largest predatory shark that ever lived vanished because the world changed faster than it could adapt. And here's the haunting part. Megalodon had no idea it was the last generation. The final individuals swimming through warming then cooling seas had no concept they were witnessing the end of their lineage. They just hunted, bred, and eventually died without descendants. Extinction doesn't announce itself. It just happens. Megalodon wasn't alone. The history of marine giants is a history of extinctions. Ichthyosaurs ruled Mesozoic seas for over 160 million years. Dolphin-shaped reptiles ranging from 6 feet to possibly 90 feet long. They survived the Triassic-Jurassic extinction. They thrived through the Jurassic period. Then, around 90 million years ago, during the Cretaceous, they began declining. By the time the asteroid hit 66 million years ago, ichthyosaurs were already gone. We don't know exactly why. Climate change, ocean chemistry shifts, competition from other marine reptiles. Whatever the cause, 160 million years of evolutionary success ended without fanfare. Mosasaurs replaced them. Enormous marine lizards, some reaching 50 feet, with jaws that could crush ammonites and sea turtles. They dominated the late Cretaceous seas for about 30 million years. Then the asteroid struck, 66 million years ago. The Chicxulub impact, 10 kilometers of rock hitting the Yucatan Peninsula at 20 kilometers per second. Продолжение. Икст. 5. Часть 2. The energy release was equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. The impact vaporized rock, creating a fireball that reached the stratosphere. Debris ejected into space fell back as molten rain. Wildfires ignited across continents. Then came the darkness. Dust and sulfur aerosols blocked sunlight for months, possibly years. Photosynthesis stopped. Plankton died. The entire marine food chain collapsed from the bottom up. Mosasaurs, sitting at the apex of that food chain, starved. Within a few thousand years, they were extinct. Along with plesiosaurs, ammonites, and 75% of all species on Earth, the asteroid didn't discriminate. It killed giants and microbes alike. But giants, requiring enormous amounts of food, had no buffer, no reserves to outlast years of famine. They went first. Then came the whales. Not the whales we know today, but their ancestors. Basilosaurus, a serpentine predatory whale that lived 40 to 34 million years ago during the Eocene, 60 to 70 feet long. Unlike modern whales, Basilosaurus had a long, flexible spine, more like a sea serpent than a submarine. It hunted in warm, shallow seas, feeding on fish and smaller whales. For 6 million years, Basilosaurus was the ocean's apex predator. Then global cooling hit. The Eocene-Oligocene transition, 34 million years ago. Antarctica froze. Ocean temperatures dropped 10 degrees Celsius within a few 100,000 years. Shallow tropical seas contracted. Basilosaurus, adapted to warmth, couldn't adjust. It went extinct, replaced by more cold-tolerant whales. Evolution continued, but Basilosaurus was gone. Each of these extinctions followed a pattern: environmental change, food chain disruption, giants dying first because they need more resources and adapt more slowly. This pattern has repeated for 500 million years, and it's happening again right now. In 1904, Antarctic whalers began hunting blue whales commercially, using explosive harpoons and steam-powered ships. For the first time in history, humans had technology capable of killing the largest animals ever to exist, and we used it enthusiastically. Between 1904 and 1967, whalers killed approximately 350,000 blue whales. 350,000 in 63 years. We reduced the global population by 90%, from an estimated 350,000 individuals to fewer than 25,000. We nearly drove them to extinction for oil, lamp fuel, margarine, cosmetics. The International Whaling Commission banned commercial blue whale hunting in 1966. The population has recovered slowly. Current estimates suggest around 25,000 blue whales alive today. That sounds like a lot. It's not. It's less than 10% of historical numbers. Genetic studies show blue whales suffered a severe bottleneck: reduced genetic diversity, increased vulnerability to disease and environmental change. They survived, but they're fragile. And they're not alone. Whale sharks, the largest fish alive today, are listed as endangered. Populations declining due to ship strikes, fishing net entanglement, and targeted hunting in some regions. Giant manta rays, with wingspans up to 23 feet, are classified as vulnerable, threatened by bycatch and demand for their gill plates in traditional medicine. Greenland sharks, living 400 years in deep Arctic waters, are accidentally caught in fishing gear. We don't even know their population numbers, but we're killing them faster than they can reproduce. The modern threats are different than those that killed Megalodon or Basilosaurus, but they're just as deadly. Ocean acidification. As atmospheric carbon dioxide increases, oceans absorb about 30% of it. The dissolved CO2 forms carbonic acid, lowering ocean pH. Since the Industrial Revolution, ocean pH has dropped by 0.1 units. That sounds small. It represents a 30% increase in acidity. and it's accelerating. Acidic water dissolves calcium carbonate, the material used by plankton, corals, and shellfish to build shells and skeletons. Plankton populations are declining. Coral reefs are dying. The base of the marine food chain is eroding. Blue whales eat krill. Krill eat plankton. If plankton populations crash, krill populations follow. Then blue whales starve. Not immediately. Not in a single season. But over decades, feeding becomes harder. Calves are born smaller. Fewer survive to adulthood. Population growth slows, then reverses. Within a few generations, you have a death spiral. This isn't speculation. We're seeing early signs. Krill populations in the Antarctic have declined by about 80% since the 1970s. The largest aggregations of krill on Earth are shrinking. Blue whales are losing their primary food source. Then there's warming. Ocean temperatures have increased by 0.8 degrees Celsius since 1900. That might not sound like much, but marine ecosystems are finely tuned. Many species have narrow temperature tolerances. As oceans warm, species migrate toward cooler waters, polar and subpolar. But there's a limit. Eventually, you run out of ocean. Cold-adapted species have nowhere to go. And warm water species moving poleward disrupt existing ecosystems. The result is chaos, shifting ranges, collapsing food webs, local extinctions. We're living through the beginning of the sixth mass extinction. The first 5 were caused by asteroids, volcanism, and climate shifts beyond any species control. This one is caused by us. And marine giants are, as always, among the first to suffer. They need vast ranges, abundant food, stable environments. We're fragmenting ranges with shipping lanes and fishing zones. We're depleting food with industrial fishing. We're destabilizing environments with pollution and climate change. The ocean is under assault. And its largest inhabitants, the creatures that have inspired awe for millions of years, are losing. Here's the difference between now and previous extinctions. Megalodon didn't know it was going extinct. It couldn't. It had no awareness of population numbers or environmental trends. It just lived, adapted when it could, and disappeared when it couldn't. But we know. We have data. We track populations. We measure ocean chemistry. We model future climate scenarios. We know blue whales are at 10% of historical population. We know krill is declining. We know acidification is worsening. We know what's coming if nothing changes. And unlike Megalodon, we can choose differently. The question isn't whether giants can survive. The question is whether we'll let them. Blue whales have existed for 5 million years. They survived ice ages. They survived sea level changes. They've outlasted countless species. They can survive the current climate shift if we stop actively making it worse. But survival requires space, food, time to adapt, and we're not giving them any of those things. We're heating the ocean, depleting prey, filling their habitat with noise, plastic, and ship traffic. We're running an extinction experiment in real time, and the results are predictable. But there's another question. Suppose we lose the current giants. Suppose blue whales, whale sharks, and giant manta rays go extinct within the next few centuries. Would evolution replace them? Would new giants eventually evolve to fill those niches? The answer is almost certainly yes, eventually. But the timescale is crushing. Evolution isn't fast. After the Permian extinction 252 million years ago, the worst mass extinction in Earth's history, when 90% of marine species died, it took 10 million years for ecosystems to fully recover. 10 million years before biodiversity returned to pre-extinction levels. 10 million years before new apex predators and giants evolved to replace those lost. After the asteroid killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, mammals were small, rat-sized. It took 15 million years for large mammals to re-evolve. 15 million years before creatures the size of elephants and whales emerged. Evolution experiments constantly. It produces giants when conditions allow. Large body size offers advantages. Better predation, more efficient travel, protection from smaller predators. But those advantages only matter if food is abundant and environment is stable. And building a giant takes time, millions of years of selection, incremental increases in size across thousands of generations. You don't get a blue whale overnight. You get it after 50 million years of whale evolution, starting from small deer-like land mammals that gradually adapted to water. If we drive current giants extinct, evolution will eventually produce new ones. But not in our lifetimes. Not in our children's lifetimes. Not for thousands of human generations. The ocean would be a diminished place for longer than human civilization has existed. We'd lose not just the animals, but the experience of them. Future generations would read about blue whales the way we read about Megalodon, as fossils, as reconstructions, as something amazing that once existed but is gone. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not just the loss of species, but the loss of wonder. The knowledge that something as impossibly large as a blue whale exists right now, swims through the same oceans we swim in, breathes the same air, shares the same planet. There's a psychological weight to knowing giants are real. Not mythical, not extinct. Real, alive, out there. It changes how you see the world. Makes it bigger, more mysterious, more worth protecting. If we lose that, we lose part of ourselves. The part that looks at the ocean and knows it, contains things larger than comprehension. The part that feels small in a good way, humbled, connected to something ancient and vast. That feeling is rare in the modern world. We've conquered so much, mapped so much, measured so much, but you can't conquer a blue whale. You can only witness it. And if we're not careful, future generations won't even have that. The good news, if there is any, is that we're aware of this. Conservation efforts are growing. Marine protected areas are expanding. Some whale populations are recovering slowly. Technology is helping. Satellite tracking lets us monitor migration routes and adjust shipping lanes to reduce collisions. Acoustic monitoring detects whale calls, helping us identify critical habitats. Genetic studies guide breeding programs for endangered species. We have tools Megalodon never had: knowledge, foresight, choice. But tools are useless without will. And that's the test we're facing. Not whether we can save ocean giants. We can. The question is whether we will. Whether we'll prioritize long-term survival of species over short-term economic convenience. Whether we'll accept that protecting blue whales means restricting fishing, reducing shipping traffic, cutting carbon emissions. Those things cost money, require sacrifice, demand change, and change is hard. But the alternative is a world without giants. An ocean where the largest creatures are whale sharks at 40 feet, if they survive, or basking sharks at 30 feet, or great whites at 20. Still impressive, still worth protecting, but not the same, not even close. Because there's something about a 100-foot, 200-ton animal that defies casual understanding. It forces you to reconsider scale, possibility, the sheer improbability that life can become that large. Lose that, and the ocean becomes smaller, less mysterious, more knowable, and therefore less worth dreaming about. Megalodon is gone. Basilosaurus is gone. Mosasaurs and ichthyosaurs are gone. We study their fossils. We marvel at reconstructions. We imagine what it would have been like to see them, but we never will. They're lost to time, victims of environmental changes they couldn't control. But blue whales are here, now, in our time, and we have the knowledge and technology to keep them here. Whether we do is up to us. This generation, the one alive right now. We're the deciding factor. Not climate alone, not ocean chemistry alone. Us, our choices, our priorities, our willingness to protect something larger than ourselves. And maybe that's fitting. Maybe the largest creatures on Earth can only be saved by something equally improbable. A species that evolved consciousness, that developed science and technology, that can look at the trajectory we're on and choose to change it. We're not the strongest species, not the largest, not the oldest, but we're the one that can understand extinction and choose prevention. That's a responsibility no other species has ever carried. And it's terrifying, but also extraordinary. Because if we succeed, if we protect the giants, then future generations will look back at this era as the moment we chose preservation over exploitation. The moment we decided the ocean's mysteries were worth keeping. The moment we realized that sharing the planet with creatures weighing 200 tons made us richer, not poorer. That's a legacy worth building. And it starts with recognizing what we have before it becomes what we had. Transition to finale. We started this journey with a tooth, a fossil pulled from the Pacific floor in 1873. 7 inches of serrated ivory that once belonged to the largest predatory shark ever to hunt Earth's oceans. For over a century, we believed Megalodon was the ultimate oceanic giant, the biggest, the most powerful, the apex of everything. And in some ways, it was. Pound for pound, nothing has matched its predatory dominance. But biggest is a complicated word. Megalodon was the largest predatory fish, but not the heaviest creature. That title belongs to Perucetus, an ancient whale weighing 340 tons. Not the longest creature. That might be an unnamed ichthyosaur from fragmentary fossils suggesting 85 feet or more, or a blue whale at 110 feet, or Leeds ichthys, depending on whose estimates you trust. The question we asked, what was the largest sea creature ever, doesn't have a single answer. It has 3 answers depending on what largest means. And all 3 answers come with caveats: incomplete fossils, conflicting estimates, ongoing research that revises numbers every few years. The ocean doesn't give up its secrets easily. It makes us work for every discovery, argue over every fragment, reconsider every assumption. But that's what makes this beautiful. We're still learning, still finding, still being surprised. Perucetus was confirmed 8 months ago. 8 months. The heaviest animal that ever existed was unknown to science until this year. What else is waiting? In the fossil record, buried under rock and time. In the deep ocean, swimming through darkness we haven't explored. In genetic data we haven't fully analyzed. The ocean is 4 billion years old. We've been studying it seriously for maybe 200 years. We're beginners. Enthusiastic, well-equipped beginners, but beginners nonetheless. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't to find the definitive answer. Maybe it's to keep searching, to maintain the humility that comes from knowing how little we understand, to preserve the sense of wonder that comes from realizing the ocean still has mysteries. Megalodon is gone, but its tooth remains, a reminder that giants existed, that the ocean builds life on scales we struggle to comprehend, that evolution experiments with size in ways impossible on land. Blue whales are here, now, the largest animals currently alive, possibly the largest that will ever live, if physics and ecology set hard limits. But we don't know. We can't know, because the ocean keeps teaching us we're wrong. Every decade brings a new discovery that rewrites the records, a new fossil, a new species, a new understanding of what's possible. So the largest sea creature ever. We're still looking, and that's not a failure of science. That's a celebration of mystery, a recognition that Earth still has secrets, that the deep ocean holds things we haven't seen, that bones are still waiting in stone, telling stories we haven't learned to read yet. That's worth protecting, worth studying, worth marveling at. Because in a world where we think we've mapped everything and measured everything and explained everything, the ocean reminds us we haven't, not even close. It reminds us that wonder is still possible, that discovery is still happening, that the planet we've lived on for 300,000 years can still surprise us. And as long as that's true, as long as the ocean keeps its mysteries, then we're still connected to something larger than ourselves, something ancient, something ongoing, something that makes us small in the best possible way. That tooth from 1873, that fragment of Megalodon, it's not an ending, it's an invitation to keep looking, to keep wondering, to keep protecting the giants we have while searching for evidence of giants we lost. The ocean's story isn't finished, it's barely started. And we're lucky enough to be here, asking questions, finding fragments of answers, and realizing how much we still don't know. That's the gift. Not certainty, not complete understanding, but the promise that the search continues. And every time we descend into the deep, or dig into ancient stone, or sequence DNA from a water sample, we might find something that changes everything. Again, the ocean guarantees that. It's kept secrets for 4 billion years. It's not done yet. Neither are we. The largest sea creature ever. Maybe we'll find it tomorrow. Maybe never. But in the searching, in the questioning, in the willingness to be humbled by scale and time, and the sheer improbability of life becoming that large, we find something more valuable than answers. We find our place in the story, not as narrators, as witnesses to wonders we didn't create, can't fully explain, and must choose to protect. That's enough. It has to be. Because the ocean doesn't owe us answers. It just offers opportunities to learn, to discover, to be astonished, and if we're wise, to ensure that the giants swimming through the deep today are still there for generations who'll ask the same questions we asked, and maybe, just maybe, find better answers. The search continues. The ocean waits. And somewhere in the darkness, something enormous moves through the water, unaware we're up here, wondering about it. Exactly as it should be.